The Amazon rainforest covers 2.1 million square miles. It is a biome so vast it creates its own weather and so dense it can swallow a jumbo jet without leaving a trace. In 2018, it swallowed the Anderson family. Robert, Emily, and their 3 children were seasoned travelers, not careless tourists. They entered the jungle with maps, guides, and plans. Then, the digital silence began. No distress signal, no GPS pings for 5 years. The world assumed they were just another tragic statistic of the Amazon interior. But in 2023, the jungle gave something back. Not a body, but a survivor. And the story she carried out of the trees wasn't just a tale of survival. It was a witness testimony to a crime hidden deep within the canopy. To understand the disappearance, you have to understand the victims. Robert and Emily Anderson were meticulous planners. They didn't take unnecessary risks. When they brought their children, Lucas, 16, Mia, 12, and 8-year-old Sophie, to Brazil, it was an educational expedition, not a reckless holiday. Robert's older brother, Mark, had urged caution, but Robert assured him they had researched everything. The lodge was reputable. The route was established. Social media logs from early 2018 confirmed their itinerary. They were headed for a remote eco-lodge near the Peruvian border, a region known for its biodiversity and, crucially, its isolation. The first week was idyllic. The uploads were consistent. Photos of howler monkeys, river sunsets, the children journaling by firelight. But on day 7, the data stream cut out. Authorities initially dismissed it as infrastructure failure. Cell towers in the Amazon are rare. But when the family failed to board their return flight in Manaus, the clock started ticking. The search was massive. The Brazilian Federal Police, coordinating with U.S. Embassy liaisons, deployed thermal imaging helicopters and river patrols. They swept the riverbanks for weeks. The only lead was a testimony from a lodge employee who claimed the family left with a local guide, a man who, notably, also vanished. By 2019, the file was effectively closed. The official theory: the family and their guide had likely succumbed to the elements or a boating accident. Their remains claimed by the river. The case went cold. 5 years is an eternity in a missing persons case. Hope doesn't fade. It mathematically approaches 0. That 0 was reset on a Tuesday morning in 2023. Security personnel at a remote outpost 200 miles west of the original search zone detained a young female. She was malnourished with severe sun damage on her skin, dressed in woven plant fibers. She was approximately 13 years old. She spoke a dialect of Tupi-Guarani mixed with fractured, halting English. Biometric analysis and facial recognition software eventually confirmed the impossible. This was Sophie Anderson. News reached the United States within hours. Mark Anderson, Robert's older brother and the family's point of contact during the crisis, boarded the first flight to Brazil alongside his daughter, Francesca. The reunion was not one of joy, but of shock. The girl before them was hypervigilant, withdrawn, deeply mistrustful of her surroundings. She flinched at the hum of air conditioning. She refused to eat processed food. But beneath the trauma, her cognitive faculties remained intact. Sophie communicated a single, terrifying fact: the others are still there. An extraction mission was organized within 48 hours. Brazilian authorities assembled a small tactical team of experienced jungle navigators, but Sophie insisted on leading them. She didn't trust the maps, she trusted the terrain. Mark and Francesca joined the expedition. Observers noted that Sophie's movement through the jungle had fundamentally changed. She didn't fight the environment, she moved with it, reading broken twigs and soil impressions like signposts. This wasn't just survival, it was total environmental adaptation. 48 hours into the unmapped sector, they found the first physical evidence: a branded camping pot rusted through. Francesca recognized it from the family's packing list 5 years prior. As they continued, Sophie became increasingly agitated. She wasn't simply leading them to a camp. She was racing against something. On the morning of the 3rd day, the team breached a clearing that appeared on no government survey. It was an isolated community living independently of the modern Brazilian state, an uncontacted group that had, until now, remained invisible to the outside world. And sitting among the villagers were 4 figures who looked like ghosts. Robert, Emily, Lucas, and Mia were alive, but barely. 5 years of exposure had stripped the parents of their vitality. They were skeletal, their skin marked with lesions and discoloration. Through careful translation, the narrative of their lost years emerged. Their guide had become disoriented during a storm, leading them away from the river and into deep cover. When the guide abandoned them, the family wandered for weeks until they were discovered by this tribe. The villagers had saved them. They taught the Andersons to fish with woven nets, to identify edible plants, to endure. But in recent months, something had changed. It wasn't starvation killing them. It was a sickness. The villagers were suffering too. Chronic fatigue, tremors, skin deterioration, a slow systemic decline with no visible cause. Sophie had left not just because she missed home. She left because she understood her family was dying, and no one in the outside world knew they existed. While medics worked to stabilize the family, Lucas, now 21, transformed by years in the jungle, pulled Mark aside. He had a theory. The sickness wasn't biological in origin, it was industrial. Sophie produced a piece of evidence she had carried for miles, a stamped metal tag she found upstream. Upstream from the village, illegal gold mining operations had established dredging sites. These miners, known locally as garimperos, used mercury to separate gold from river sediment. That mercury was washing downstream, bioaccumulating in the fish the villagers ate and the water they drank. The Anderson family hadn't just been lost. They had been slowly poisoned. Sophie's desperate trek through the jungle wasn't merely a search for rescue. It was an act of exposure, a whistleblowing operation carried out by a 13-year-old girl who refused to let her family die in silence. The evacuation was swift. The Anderson family was airlifted to specialized care in Sao Paulo, where they underwent chelation therapy for heavy metal poisoning. Their return to civilization was a medical near miracle, but the story they brought back had consequences far beyond their own survival. Using the coordinates provided by Sophie and the testimony of the family, Brazilian environmental authorities launched a coordinated raid on the illegal mining sector. The operation shut down 3 major dredging sites that had been poisoning the indigenous water table for years. Today, the Andersons are recovering. They live a quiet life, removed from public attention, but their legacy is etched into the map they helped redraw. They entered the Amazon as tourists. They emerged as survivors. And in doing so, they exposed a hidden crime that had been left to fester in one of the most inaccessible places on Earth. Sophie Anderson walked out of the jungle alone so that an entire village wouldn't die in the dark. One wrong turn, and civilization disappears. But sometimes, the will to survive becomes the only map that matters.